So, your target for this week was checking pupil understanding before moving on in lessons.
Yeah, that's right.
And you've been trying out cold calling to get more pupils answering questions.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me what's happened.
Well, I had 2 of the same lessons with my Year 8s this week, so I tried it out with them. I did it at the end of the section on animal cells and then again at the end of the plant cells bit, so I knew they were ready to move on to the comparison tasks.
Okay, so we talked through the process of cold calling last week. So how did you choose the students?
Well, I did it randomly, so I stabbed the register with a pen. Well, sort of randomly. I was careful about asking a couple I know get nervous, so I checked they had the right answer first. And then I also deliberately chose a couple who I think avoid answering.
Okay, and did that work?
Yeah, I definitely had more students who answered the questions than when I was getting them to just put their hands up, and I could check more of them got it before I moved on.
And did you change anything in the way that you did it between the 2 Year 8 lessons?
Yes, I did, because I forgot to give the students instructions the first time, so I didn't do the pause. So in the second lesson, I remembered to tell them they'd have a few seconds to think of the answer, and then I would choose someone, so they actually had to think about it.
Ah, okay. And so how did that work better?
More of them paid attention because they didn't know who I was going to ask, so it did definitely work better.
Great. So practicing made that easier?
Yeah, and then I've actually used it a couple of times with Year 7 as well. Not planned as such, but because I was asking questions and I just knew it would work.
Brilliant. And so that's all the positives. Any downsides, though, to cold calling that you found?
Yeah, well, you still only get to ask a few students, even though you pick out who you need to ask. And a couple of them worked out by the second part of the lesson that they could avoid asking questions by just waiting for me to bounce the answer to someone else. So in that sense, it didn't really work for them.
Okay. When you say it didn't work, is there a way around that, do you think?
Not sure.
Okay. How about only allowing one bounce or allowing a swap?
Well, I could try that. I'd have to remember who had had their bounce. I suppose I could write it on the board though.
Yeah, good idea. Perhaps make a note for yourself for next time. So, how about the issue that you still don't reach all students with cold calling?
Well, I suppose it's one technique, isn't it? So I guess you'd have to mix it up with something else so the students can't dip out of that instead. So I need to try something else, don't I? But maybe I could still use the cold calling as well and something else to check everybody's got it.
Yeah, I agree. You've got to keep them on their toes. So, any ideas what you could try next?
Well, I quite like to do the mini whiteboards thing because we use them in professional studies. And then I guess everybody has to give an answer, don't they?
Yeah, okay. Well, let's make that our next target. Checking the understanding of all students before moving on by using mini whiteboards. But of course, do keep some cold calling in there too, now that you've got the hang of it and you know what works.
Yeah.
So let's plan then how that's going to work. What will you need to think about when using mini whiteboards?
Getting the kit out to the students. So there's the boards and pens and rubbers, and then do all the pens work, that sort of thing?
Yeah. So you could just do it at the start when everything else is being handed out?
Yeah, but won't they just muck about with the boards? I've seen that happen actually, and then you'd lose that bit of the lesson and then they won't settle and then you won't get anything done.
Okay, so is there another point in a lesson when it would be easier to get the boards out?
Perhaps, could you do it when they're doing a written task? So I could hand the boards out while they're busy doing that.
Yeah, that could work. Yeah, put that into your plan. Okay, so anything else to think about?
Well, like we talked about before, I need to tell them, I need to explain to them what they need to do. So how long have they got to write the answer? Tell them about 3, 2, 1, hold up the boards, that sort of thing.
Yeah, sounds good. Are there any assumptions you might be making?
Or that everyone will actually put an answer down.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, so why might that happen?
Maybe they don't understand. Maybe they don't want to show their answer. I suppose they might just be being lazy.
So what would you do in that case?
I've got a TA in year 7, so I could get him to help if they don't know what to do.
Yeah, and possibly if anyone is really that shy, I've sometimes suggested they just show me the board until they're confident to hold it up.
Yeah, that sounds good. What if they just don't do it? What if they just refuse?
Yeah, well, what would we usually do if a student doesn't do the work?
Give them a warning?
Yeah, and this is no different, is it? It's every bit as important as any other work that they're asked to do. It's there to help them to learn. And so you can explain that to them, that you're checking their understanding to help them to learn.
Yeah, so I think they see it as fun, don't they? But I can't let them think it's optional.
Exactly, yeah. So thinking about how we developed cold calling, how can you deepen those questions? Or to put it another way, how could you be really certain that they understand, that they've really got it before you move on?
Well, I suppose if someone gets it wrong, I could ask what their thinking is, so I know what they've just understood. Or I could get someone who's got the right answer to explain it to them. And then they're learning as well, aren't they? Or I suppose if they've all got it right, well, I could ask them how we know it's right.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And you can ask supplementary questions as well using cold calling. Great. Okay, so are you happy with that as one of your targets for this week? Yeah?
Yeah.
So checking the understanding of all pupils by using mini whiteboards.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, we're also building your questioning skills at the same time. So thinking about the types of questions that you're going to be asking. So, and getting you to think about pupil progress as well.
Great, so that sounds fine. So if I trial that with year 7 on Friday and then use it again with the year 8 classes when I see them next week, that sounds good, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's great, thanks.